Hello, Soul Fam. Welcome. If you're new here, my name is Sarah Rose. Welcome to Divine Femme TV. I am charging my phone because I was on a trail and realized I had like 1% battery left. And this trail is crazy with so many like off the beaten paths that you could take that I knew if I didn't like have my All Trails app that I had a high potential that I might be lost in the middle of it right around sunset, and I didn't want to do that. So here I am charging my phone, and I thought it would be a beautiful time to just pop in here and record something for you because there's some messages coming through. I'm going to get some fresh air. Open this up. So if you've landed on this, I have no idea what I'm going to title this, but the message that's coming through is you get to play and create, and you get to be paid to be you. You get to be paid to be you. I've said this before. This is part of my Quantum Ascension Shift Code series that launched in the summer of last year. And I am living proof of this now, that you get to be fully provided for and supported doing what you love. And even though that is still unfolding, the more I step into the unknown and just follow my passions, the more miracles pop in to support me in that process. And so the image that's coming to mind is kind of like, it's like you're getting your training wheels, right? Like in this new earth frequency of how to play and create and let the heart lead and not get caught up in the logical brain and all of the shoulds and all of the potential other timelines that you could be going down that don't really truly resonate with your heart and soul. I know personally there are a lot of sacred no's that got me here, a lot of carrots being dangled in front of me, a lot of they weren't really temptations, but because I was so tapped into how my body feels, they weren't temptations in that regard, but that's what they were like. Okay, so I'm just gonna say this. You will be tempted on this journey to go down the old timeline, to be tempted by the material world, whether, like something that looks really shiny, right? Like whoever this is meant for, something that looks really shiny will be presented to you. And this can come in multiple different ways, like something that will just seem to alleviate whatever it is that you feel you're lacking at the moment, whether that be money or something in regards to your living situation or relationships or partnerships or connections or whatever. You will be presented with these little carrots that are dipped in your insecurities and then dangled in front of you, and you can bite those carrots and go down the rabbit hole of yet another timeline that is only going to lead to more suffering because you had to self-abandon in order to go down that rabbit hole. So if you're resonating with this, you are a new earth human living in new earth frequency right now, and your nervous system literally rejects now. If you are calibrated to divine coherence, then your nervous system is going to reject anything that is not in alignment at this point. And you're going to feel it very viscerally in the body. This is why the nervous system is so important, to be calibrating your nervous system and to understand that your nervous system is this sacred technology that not only is guiding you on this, but it's actually the circuitry that allows you to embody higher frequency and bring it into the body. Because on this journey, yes, spirit is calling us into oneness, like you are one with all things. There's also a deepening though into the body, a deepening into embodiment of this frequency. And it's kind of funny because after self-realization and you come into unity consciousness and divine union within, what really is exciting at that point, and maybe you can relate to this, is being more human, living the human experience and deepening into the body and into all of the senses and the experience that you came here to have. And so you will be tempted on this path of fully self-actualizing your highest timeline, meaning living your highest divine expression. You will be tempted to go down all of the rabbit holes that, that tempt the ego, that tempt the egoic mind, that have some kind of fear-based consciousness behind it, right? Like you're biting that carrot because you're afraid of what happens if you don't. That's just one example, right? And so these little carrots are dangled in front of you that are dipped in your insecurity, that basically it's the separate sense of self that's biting these carrots. It's not your divinity. It's not your divine identity that's biting these carrots. Your divine identity is rooted in sacred knowing, allowing your heart to lead. Your divine identity is not pulling you into thought form and past memory and future projection and fear-based problem solving and logical linear planning and figuring things out, right? And so this is part of living your new earth experience and being the new earth human that you came here to be. It's about allowing yourself to be led, divinely led, and following the heart. This is heart-centered creation. And so you get these carrots that you're welcome to go down. You can bite those carrots. I bit off some of those carrots and went down a rabbit hole just enough to realize, like, oh, that's not it. Because all of these timelines will start to be presented to you very, very fast, because the manifestation perceived gap no longer exists when you are operating in divine mind and from this place of inner union. And so things will render in the 3D, for lack of a better word, very quickly. And any carrot that you bite that is rooted in self-abandonment or fear-based consciousness in any way is only going to lead to more suffering. And so most likely, if you've landed here, you've been faced with some pretty intense choice points recently that you have had to draw a line in the sand of what you're available for and what you're not available for. This is where I always speak to sacred discernment is key. If you're listening to this, you're at a pivotal point where sacred discernment is key, and you're being asked to follow what really lights you up. You're being asked to embrace that inner child, the wonder, the magic, the curiosity, the play, right? You're here to play and create. That's what you're here to do. You're a creator. You're here to create. You're one with the creator. This is why you feel stuck and stagnant if all you're doing is consuming. You're here to create. What you're here to create, your medicine, your magic, your sacred medicine for the collective, for whoever you're here to serve, through being a sacred mirror for them, is going to look completely unique to you. And this is a good example. Like, my sacred medicine is completely unique to me. This is what the soul is calling through me, which is what the divine expression wants to express through me, which involves a more nomadic kind of traveling lifestyle, being rooted in nature and creating from that. And the more I try to control it, if I do try to control it, there's really a lot of there's no need to control. Like, really, the more you try to control it, the more you suffocate all of the magic out of it, right? Because you're not here to know. You're here to play in the unknown. You're here to just follow the frequency of joy and fun and play and what is your highest authentic expression. So when I say, which I have said for many, many months, probably going close on coming up to a year now, that you're here to play and create in divine overflow and get paid to be you. What this means is you have to be authentically you. And what that means is that all of the different identities, the performance identity, the identity that feels you need external validation, like all of the different ways that you've been attached to external approval or fitting into boxes and comfortable cages that you feel you had to fit in order to be successful or to be seen as worthy or whatever. Like all of those identities need to fall away. All of those identities get stripped in order for you to rise into your most authentic expression. And it can be painful the more you cling to the timelines and the identities and the masks and the roles and the conditioning and the patterns that used to keep you safe, because and that represent an identity you've already outgrown. Because if you're listening to this you've already outgrown it. I'm speaking to those that are on the precipice, right? You're on the leading edge of your own transformation. You're leading new earth. You've outgrown your old identity. And you're going to continue to outgrow. Your divine identity is fluid. It's not something that is like locked in, that you can label and point to and say, now that's me. That's just the ego coming in the back door trying to claim another mask to wear. Now, the paradox is you get to wear all of the masks and play all of them when you're playing from the highest level, from a divine identity coherence. When you're playing the game of life instead of being in the game of life as if you're this separate sense of self that needs to figure everything out. That is going to lead to a lot of frustration and a lot of unnecessary suffering. When you are surrendered and letting go to the divine flow, the divine infinite intelligence that is nature, that is you, that you are one with, that you are connected with. This is the sacred feminine. This is the infinite intelligence that is beating your heart right now, looking through your eyes right now. It is the wind, it is the trees, it is the sound of the birds chirping, it is like the divine creative intelligence behind all of this. You are that. And when you surrender to that, there is no need to control or figure anything out. And paradoxically, that's when shit starts to pop into your experience. It actually starts to connect some of the dots for you and starts to fill in some of the puzzle pieces that bring you a little bit more clarity. But you're still not meant to figure it out ever. But the mind is going to come in the back door and try to figure it out and try to compartmentalize it and try to label it and try to plan it. And it's like this never-ending surrender and trust fall with life. And the more you do that, I swear to God, I swear to the God within you and the God within me that is running this show, that as you surrender to the unknown and you get really discerning around what you're available for, because there's no room for wishy-washy energy here. And this doesn't mean it sounds paradoxical what I'm saying, but let me explain. This isn't about controlling the process and gripping the wheel, but it's about sacredly discerning what you're available for, because you are a worthy child of God. And if you are choosing things that are rooted in lack, scarcity, or unworthiness, then you are operating from sin, so to speak. You are operating from the false sense of self. You are operating from separation consciousness. There is nothing unworthy, weak, small, or lackful about being in your divine essence, your divine power, your creative divine expression. There is a declaring then that happens of what you are available for. You're not begging the universe. You don't have your beggar's cup out begging God or the divine for your next blessing or your next sign or your next synchronicity. You are the synchronicity. You are one with life. There's no beggar's cup, right? You put your beggar's cup away and you begin to walk in the Christed self that is one with all things, and you declare and you discern what is available for you. And if you are settling in any way, compromising in any way, giving your power away, self-abandoning in any way. That is not coming from your divine identity. That is not coming from your divine expression. That is coming from the false sense of self that is rooted in separation consciousness, aka fear-based consciousness, and you're trying to make decisions from that. And the message that's coming through is you're not going to be able to make decisions from that anymore without hitting a lot of walls and coming into a lot of unnecessary suffering, because you are here to be a living, walking, talking transmission of what is possible when you fully embody truth, your divinity, right? This is an embodiment game. This is, you are anchoring in a higher frequency, and your nervous system is the sacred technology and the key for this. Your body is a vessel. The nervous system is the circuitry that allows you to hold your new reality. Now, here's the thing about the nervous system that came up the other day that I was talking to somebody, I believe it was in a coffee shop, I'm not sure, that as you start to shift out of the old identity, your nervous system is going to get triggered, because your nervous system is actually calibrated to the reality that you've always known to be true. And that reality may have a lot of unpleasant and unnecessary suffering in it, and a lot of compromising, and a lot of playing small, and a lot of giving your power away, and a lot of all the things that stem from that. And so when you start to expand into your divine expression, which, if you're listening to this is what your soul came here to experience. You are all of this, you are one with all of this, and you are here to live as a divine expression of it, which means no compromising, no settling, no selling yourself short, no operating from fear-based consciousness. And so as you begin to expand into your divine expression, things are going to be falling away that are no longer in alignment. You may have already experienced this. I'm assuming if you've landed here, you have already experienced this, that the old identity, things that you gave power to, basically through your conscious presence and awareness, that old identity starts to crumble and fall away. And then you go through this process of biting a few more carrots, going down a few more rabbit holes of scarcity, unworthiness, or not feeling good enough, or needing validation or approval in some way, or the performance identity where you feel like your worthiness or your approval and your validation is tied to some external means, some external thing. And so you bite those carrots, you go down those rabbit holes just long enough to realize that that's not it. Like, that is it served you. You gained a lot of clarity and wisdom from it, but it is not the timeline that you're here to walk. The timeline that you're here to walk is your highest divine, authentic timeline, your highest divine expression. And to be able to create from that, which is playing and creating in the frequency of fun and freedom and flow and ease and love and abundance and prosperity and all of the goodness that life has in store for you. And so when you begin to move into, and I'm just using language here, so all of this is just like, it's very paradoxical, but I'm just going to try to explain it. So the experience of it, as you begin to move into your divine expression, I wonder what my battery is at right now. I don't think it's charging very much. I think it's still at like 1%. Oh no. Okay, so as you begin to calibrate to your higher divine expression, which is what your soul came here to experience, or you wouldn't be listening to this, and this wouldn't be resonating with you, and you would have already clicked off of this video, because I rambled probably a ton, and you wouldn't even still be here if this didn't resonate on some level. Your nervous system is going to get triggered because it's calibrated to your old reality. Finally, I was like trying to get back to that. Okay, so that is a natural process. That's actually a sign that you're stretching outside of your familiar comfort zone. Your nervous system is calibrated to your old reality. But then as you move into this identity and you begin to make different choices, and you're not biting those carrots that are leading you down rabbit holes of lack, scarcity, unworthiness, you're not biting the self-abandonment carrot anymore, right? You're not biting those carrots and going down that road. So you're expanding Your external world is going to render what you're expanding into, but the external world, the mirror, is going to render less. What's happening first internally and energetically is more important, because the external world will catch up. It has no choice but to catch up. Okay, it has no choice but to reflect back to you what it is that you are embodying within. As within, so without. As above, so below. The external world is a mirror. So don't look at the mirror and ask it to change. This is an internal game, right? And so as you are acclimating and recalibrating to a more higher divine reality, a higher divine expression, one that is rooted in truth and love and abundance and prosperity, and the truth of who and what you are, which is not limited, which is not lackful, which is not unworthy, which doesn't need to settle or compromise or anything, right? So what happens is you're calibrating to this new identity, and you may still be biting these little carrots, going down some rabbit holes and stuff, but at the same time there's a higher level of awareness, so you're catching it. It's not taking you years when you go down one of those rabbit holes to figure it out, right? You're going down one of those rabbit holes maybe for like a day, a week, a month, or something like that, and you're figuring it out very fast because there's a high level of awareness there, and it's just meant to purify another layer of illusion, and meant to give you the insight and the wisdom that needed to be gleaned from that experience, so you can peel away another layer. And so then every time you start to choose differently through sacred discernment, you're calibrating to a new frequency, and your nervous system has to catch up in order to hold that, right? And the thing with the nervous system is that, so it's being triggered at first, which is a good sign, because that means you're expanding, but then it needs to be recalibrated in order to hold the new identity, in order to hold the new level of abundance, in order to hold the new level of love and prosperity and leadership and visibility and all the things that are totally out of the old identity's comfort zone, right? So the nervous system has to be calibrated so that that feels actually normal, right? That the new identity begins to feel normal as your standard baseline. And so then many of you may be finding yourself in this right now, or you're moving into this more intuitively and with a heightened level of awareness. So let me know in the comments if this is resonating. There's something else that was coming through though that's really important. It's like, let me tap in. As you're moving into this new identity and you're no longer making the same decision, so you're not biting those carrots of self-abandonment that are dipped in all of your insecurities and basically dangling some kind of false sense of security, safety, or approval or validation in front of you, but is really tied to fear-based consciousness and the old identity. You stop biting those carrots, you start making new decisions based on sacred discernment, which is key, and you getting unwaveringly clear and discerning around what you are available for as a worthy child of God, right? And then as you begin to make those new decisions, you're continuously calibrating, right? Your nervous system is the container that allows you to hold this. It also happens to be the circuitry within the body that allows energy to flow. It's very closely tied to your fascia, right? So fascia work is very important during this phase as well. I'm being guided to share that. As your fascia tightens, right, as you have been living more constricted previously, maybe through trauma response conditioning and just bracing against life and having a very fear-based outlook, right, and just operating from separation consciousness in general. That's not judgment, that's just the human condition that we are born into when we agreed to be this divine expression with amnesia of who and what we truly are, what we, you know what I mean? So as you are operating from fear-based consciousness, you wear kind of the weight of the world on your shoulders because you believe that you are this separate little sense of self that's making its way through this big bad world. And maybe sometimes it's this beautiful world, but you're always toggling between like the duality of it, and you're like in it. So like when you're in it and you don't realize that you're all of it, then you have very tunnel vision, right? And everything is very, very important and urgent and life-threatening. Your mind is rooted in threat prevention. But as you expand into the awareness and divine presence that you are, and you are embodied in that, you have more of a bird's eye view of life, and things become more expansive, and there's more spaciousness. is a good word. There's more spaciousness. There's less constrictedness, right? It's less tight. There's more openness. And now things are happening within you instead of you being like this little separate sense of self, like trying to make its way through a maze with tunnel vision on and carrying the weight of the world on your shoulders. Anyways, all of that stress has been compounded for years, decades, maybe your entire life, who knows, of conditioning and stress response and, trauma responses and all of that have bogged, down, for lack of a better word, or, tightened your fascia, right? So your fascia has been responding to this. So when your fascia tightens in response to the stress and to the trauma and to the conditioning and just life in general, when you're operating from this separate sense of self, it reduces the flow within the body, the energetic flow, call it chi, call it prana, call it whatever you want. Life force energy becomes restricted. The fascia becomes tight. The nervous system is very much integrated with the fascia, and so what happens over time is your body becomes tighter and tighter and more restricted, and there's less flow of energy, there's less lymph flow, there's less flow of the body being able to detox and everything. So I'm talking on a very metaphysical level, and I'm also talking on a very physical level, right? And what's happening internally in the body. And so your body, being the sacred vessel and sacred technology that it is when you actually start to open and create more spaciousness through recalibrating your nervous system, through opening up and reconditioning your fascia, through being in nature and connecting with your breath in presence and the high frequency of Mother Earth, and you begin to breathe and exhale and release and soften and surrender what used to be so tight and constricted. You open to receive in many ways, not just energetically, not just physically. Things get flowing, not just within the body, within the lymph flow, within the blood flow, within, not only does the body get healthier and more youthful, but also energetically, you're holding more space for things to flow within your reality as well. As within, so without. The problem here is, if there was a problem, which it's not really a problem, is not only do you have the density of the conditioning and the trauma responses and all of that kind of stuff weighing on you over the decades, right? But the entire modern culture, hustle culture, or it's just a culture that's created from separation consciousness, where everyone runs around trying to validate themselves and feel safe and gain approval by external means. This rat race, right, of always chasing and seeking externally is literally designed to repress and suppress your essence, your intuition, it dysregulates your nervous system. Like, you literally have to be able to unplug from the societal conditioning, the hustle culture, the external chasing and seeking of all of the success and accolades outside of yourself in order to gain that false sense of validation or approval. This isn't to say you just discount material world, like, we're not saying that. What I am saying is that this constant seeking and chasing outside of yourself and the restrictedness and the constrictedness that is just an earmark for the way society in general functions is literally setting you up for a dysregulated nervous system. And then what happens is you seek relief, right? As a human, you seek relief, and that relief is often sought out in the form of maybe another relationship just to fill a void, or maybe it's you numbing out, maybe it's to alcohol or some kind of addiction, or maybe it's to a glass of wine every single night, or a Netflix binge all the time, right? And that's not any single one of those, not any single one of those, but you know, like, not saying that like watching a Netflix movie or having a glass of wine is bad, but what I'm saying is that you will ingeniously find ways to numb out or to disconnect from your true essence, right? This entire society is set up to be a distraction from what you truly are, to keep the mind trapped in fear-based chasing and seeking. And when you see that the entire system is rigged, not in your favor, and this isn't about like, you know, I truly believe, like, I'm going to butcher this, but Einstein's quote, like, you can either see like everything as a miracle or nothing as a miracle, or maybe he said it backwards, like you can see nothing as a miracle or everything as a miracle. I truly see everything as a miracle. Life is a friendly place when you're living it at the highest level, when you're living it as a separate sense of self, trapped in the conditioning and the density and the trauma responses, and then layering on top of it all of the coping mechanisms to numb out or to distract yourself or to run, like all of that, then the world looks like a very unfriendly place. And then you're constantly trying to just, the mind is just wired in threat prevention. And all that does is continuous, you know, is more restriction, more constriction, more density that is internalized in the body. So what does that mean? It means less flowing, less blood flow, less lymph flow, less energy flow, tighter fascia, and a dysregulated nervous system. And you will not be able to hold your highest divine timeline in a constricted state. You cannot create your highest divine timeline from a fear-based state. And your body is the mechanism, the vehicle of which it all flows, right? So this again is an embodiment game. And that's it. That's the message. I hope this resonated, and I just rambled for I don't even know how long, but this is just wanted to come through. I just felt the urge to hit record, and now I feel the urge to go on a little nature walk before sunset. So yeah, I mean, it's fascinating when you think about it. It's fascinating when you just take it all in, that like your body is wired in its natural state to be a vessel and a channel, which you are. But when everything's tight and constricted, and there's all this density, and there's all this layers of programming and trauma responses and societal conditioning on top of that, and just the way society functions in general, which is to numb out, to be a distraction, which is how 99% of the people live. It's no wonder why there's so many people that are living in states of dis-ease, right? Like dis-ease, and is a disconnection to the life force energy that is meant to be flowing through you very freely, very freely. But it can't flow freely when everything's all congested and tight and dense and restricted. And so how do you begin to open that up? How do you begin to open that up? How do you begin to create the spaciousness where you don't have to brace against life, where you don't have to struggle or force or try to, make everything work? Like, this is embodying your divinity. I talk about this all the time. And this is not something that, the truth of who and what you are is not a concept. It cannot be understood from the mind. It can only be directly known and experienced. And as that is recognized, then you're able to embody, for lack of a better word, higher levels of frequency in the body. But what's really happening is you're just returning to your natural state, because you're already a naturally high frequency. You're just no longer operating from all of the the density and all the inputs and all the layers of everything that have been layered over top of you, because you begin pulling those off. You begin peeling away the layer, and the veil right now is very, very thin. And so things can be seen through very, very fast. And recalibration can happen very, very quickly. And as you're recalibrating and you're making choices from a place of sacred discernment, and you're no longer self-abandoning, and you're honoring your value, your worth, right? You begin to embody more and more of the divine frequency of that which you already are. So the metaphor I always use is like, it's like one of those hot air balloons. The hot air balloon naturally will rise when you cut the sandbags that have been weighing it down. That's kind of the analogy that's coming up right now. You already are a naturally high frequency divine channel and vessel of God, creation. You are one with creation. You are this conduit, and you are here to play and create through this vessel, through this body, which means this body needs to be calibrated to hold this frequency, right? Like when those sandbags are cut, your frequency will naturally just rise to what it already is. And it's like, I'm saying the word rise, but there's just no longer going to be the density weighing it down. And then you get to play and create from this higher level, which feels like freedom, which feels like expression, which feels like play, which feels like playing in the unknown. It does not need to make sense. In fact, it won't make sense. The more the mind comes in and tries to make anything make sense, the more you're playing in separation consciousness again, which is rooted in duality. This is good, this is bad, right? And you got to put it in a box and label it so you can figure it out and try to make sense of it. That is all just the mind trying to lead and navigate everything. And this is the part of the journey where it's time for the heart to lead. The heart is going to lead you into the unknown. And as you take those steps, the path unfolds, and you will calibrate to that new level of embodiment, right, that you're being called into. So, yeah. Okay, I think I really am going to end it now, because I probably have about an hour before I want to be off the trail. So hopefully my battery is charged enough to get another mile in or so. So if this resonated with you, I would love to hear from you. Drop a comment, let me know. And if you're being called to step into your highest divine expression, and you know that right now things are feeling heavy, or that there's a lot of density, forcing or trying to figure out, there's a lot of bracing against life that you can tell is just bogging you down, right? Those sandbags that keep you from fully expanding and opening, then you can check out Nervous System Rich, which is one of my new offerings. You can find that link wherever you're listening to this. If you're listening to this on the podcast, come join us over on YouTube, because I just feel you'll have a better experience. But I still post these to you, the podcast. They're just not going to be, necessarily in a timely fashion. It's whenever I get around to posting it. So yes, that being said, also a special update. You may have already seen this on my channel, but I am now on Substack. I'm being called to write, which is one of my original loves, one of my preferred forms of creative expression, where I'm going to be diving more into my own personal reflections and insights of fully living in the unknown and living wildly authentic and free, creating, playing, and letting it unfold, living in the mystery, living in the unknown. So if that feels like something you want to join me in, then you can find the link for my Substack as well, wherever you're listening to this. I would love to have you over there as a founding femme member. So I hope this finds you well. And until next time, namaste.